This is Ted Nguyen from Inside the Pylon, and today we are going to be talking about the Cowboys' dominant run game. First, we're going to look at outside zone, then we're going to look at inside zone, and then in between, we're going to be talking about the running back reads within these concepts and how they determine where they're going to go in these concepts. So, first, we're going to look at outside zone, and yes, I realize that this play is against the New Orleans Saints, a historically bad defense in 2015. But it still illustrates how an offensive line can dominate a defensive front by working in unison. So each lineman is going to step to the play side. In this case, it's being a right, and they're either going to reach or run depending on the alignment of the defense. The running back has a choice of either bouncing the play outside, banging it upfield, or bending it back. So he's going to base his decisions off the movement of defensive linemen, which he's going to read. So his first read is going to be this outside linebacker here. If this outside linebacker gets hooked by the tight end, then the running back's going to bounce outside, but this hardly happens. Usually what happens is the running back cuts up the field or cuts it back. So if this outside linebacker goes outside and gives him the inside lane, the running back's going to look to his next read, which is the defensive end here. He's going to make a similar read, and if he gives him the inside, then he's going to look to his next read, and so on and so on. So the first thing what you notice is the offensive linemen step. They're stepping to the right. And by stepping that way and moving, they're actually moving their gap. So for example, the A gap starts here, but as the center and guard move, the A gap moves this way. The theory of zone running is that by moving the gaps, the defensive line has to keep gap integrity, and eventually they're gonna rip or leave a crease open, and the running back is going to find that crease by making his reads and getting yards that way. So as you can see, his first read is giving him the inside, which means he's going to look to a second read. In this case, his second read, the defensive end, does such a bad job that he leaves this lane wide open, and the hole is so big that it looks like you and I could run through that hole and at least get a first down. But the running back does a nice job of getting downfield and getting some good yards. So this play we have Darren McFadden in, and I'm familiar with McFadden because he played in Oakland for a while and had some success here. But it was primarily in a gap scheme, and I was surprised to hear that he did well in Dallas because Dallas is obviously a zone running team, and McFadden lacks the patience and the pacing and the ability to read consistently to run zone. At least that's what he showed while he was in Oakland. And on this play, and this game was early in the season, he kind of showed that same weakness in his game. So the stretch is going to be, or the outside zone is going to be run on this side here. And, this is going to be the same read as the last play. Outside linebacker. This is going to be his first read, and this is his next read, next read. So as you can see, the outside linebacker is forcing him to his next read, defensive end. The defensive end is obviously outside. So right now he has a choice to whether he wants to bang it into this gap here and just try to get 2 or 3 yards, which isn't a bad play because when we coach running backs who run zone, we tell them no negative plays. We want to avoid negative plays, and a 2 to 3 yard gain is a good gain. Or he can cut it backside this backside defensive end and be one-on-one with this contained player here. And he would be either bang it inside of him or cut it all the way back outside of him. But instead, he is hesitant. He makes his read and his cut too late and ends up running into the back of his offensive lineman and not getting any yards from it. So in the next play, Julius Randle comes back in the game, and he does a much better job of making his reads and being decisive. So he's gonna be faced with the same type of reads that Darren McFadden had to make. The outside linebacker forces him to a second read. His second read is telling him to go to his next read, and he decides to cut it back all the way back. And you can see he makes his cut at the perfect time. He doesn't go too early and he doesn't go too late like McFadden did. So he's gonna plant and cut here, leave enough space to accelerate. He actually gets one-on-one with the backside contained player and jukes him out of his shoes and gets outside of him and makes a nice gain out of it. Let's talk about inside zone now. Earlier I showed you a play where McFadden struggled to run outside zone, but as the season went along, he actually got much better as a zone runner by being patient and making right reads, and he actually made the right reads more often than not towards the end of the season. So this play is inside zone now. And the difference between outside zone and inside zone is that in inside zone, the running back's aiming point is actually the inside leg of the play side guard, and he's either going to hit it into play side B, play side A, or cut it back into one of the gaps backside. So his reads are going to be the play side defensive tackle, backside defensive tackle, and backside contained player. Another difference is that instead of the line trying to reach the defensive players, they're actually going to take a step outside, and by taking a step outside, the defensive front can't help but think outside zone and start moving outside. And when they do move outside, instead of trying to reach them, the offensive linemen are going to use their momentum and push them out of the way to create a crease inside. So here you can see that this defensive tackle is way out here, which is telling the running back to look to the second read. His second read actually is getting completely washed by the right guard, leaving a gaping hole. So as you can see, McFadden is patient enough to make the right read. He makes the right read, even though it's not that hard when your offensive line is just destroying people. So this also illustrates why he's maddening to watch as a runner at times. It looks like the outside is completely open because this receiver or tight end has this linebacker blocked that way. But instead of going outside, he overthinks it or doesn't see it and cuts inside to get north and south and gets tackled. So even though he gets a nice gain out of it, it looks like he could have had a touchdown or at least more yardage if he kept on going outside. So even though McFadden was serviceable, it does make sense why Jones wanted Elliott because it's going to be exciting to see what Elliott could do behind this big offensive line and see the Cowboys' run game continue to improve.